All right, hello everyone. My name is Brandon Quiros, and today my group, Robert, Caden, and Robbie, and I will be discussing Chapter 11, Power and Political Behavior, and how it impacts the business world through unexpected ways. We will also be discussing business leaders and their contributions to business trends that we see today. Okay, so for this chapter, we will be covering various topics, including how to distinguish power from influence and from authority. We will also be comparing the interpersonal and functional sources of power, as well as learning about the benefits of understanding how to properly use ethical power to your advantage and assist you with your goals. We will also be looking into the functional sources of power and how they are applied to in the real world. Next, we'll review how to identify the symbols of power and look into political behaviors found within organizations. Now we will be asking ourselves, what is power? Although many individuals may define it differently, power is ultimately the ability to influence other individuals through different methods and techniques. It occurs in transactions between an agent and a target. The agent represents a person who is using power, and the target is whom power is being used on or against. To use power effectively, one must also know what is influence and what is authority. Influence is the process of affecting the thoughts, behavior, and feelings of another person. An example of influence would be, for example, me getting new shoes and therefore having others want to get the same type of shoes as I have. The next topic is authority. Authority is the right to influence another person. An example of authority would be, for example, a manager having the power to hire or fire an individual. Both of these concepts are crucial when understanding how power functions. Moving on to the next subject of power is the zone of indifference. First, let's imagine a person who has been working all day, greeting customers, solving problems, and collecting bills. These are all actions that, when requested by a manager, are considered legitimate by a customer service representative. Requests such as these fall within the employee's zone of indifference. The zone of indifference is the range in which attempts to influence the employee are perceived as legitimate and are acted on without a great deal of thought. Requests outside the zone of indifference are viewed as extraordinary and extreme. Understanding power and politics has shown more career growth potential. CEOs are faced with more pressure when using power effectively because they are under the public eye and for everyone to see. Okay, interpersonal forms of power. In 1959, social psychologists John French and Bertram Rabin identified the 6 bases of power: reward power, coercive power, legitimate power, referent power, expert power, and information power. And now let's look into them, what they are. Reward power is based on the agent's ability to control rewards that a target wants. Coercive power is based on the agent's ability to cause the target to have an unpleasant experience. Legitimate power is based on position and mutual agreement. Reference power is based on interpersonal attraction. And then expert power exists when the agent has specialized knowledge or skills that the target needs. Information power is the access to find and control over important information. Each form of power, when used to influence someone, has different impacts on relationships and outcomes, some better than others.
Next, we'll be discussing how the 5 forms of interpersonal power can be used in an ethical manner. For reward power to be used successfully, managers must make sure that compliance is understood, requests must be fair and ethical, the rewards must be clear and attainable. These rewards also need to be desirable and credible. Subordinates aren't going to work harder for something they don't want or believe they will receive. For example, the reward of a better parking spot is wasted on someone without a car. Coercive power is hard to use ethically. Managers must be sure that subordinates understand the rules and the punishments that accompany these rules. Fair warnings must be received, and when punishment is warranted, it must be administered consistently and uniformly. Not doing so results in management losing credibility. The punishments also need to be handled in a private manner. Public displays of punishment accomplish very little and just result in embarrassed employees. A manager using legitimate power needs to be cordial to subordinates and confident in their actions. Their requests need to be reasonable and appropriate, and their requests must also be done in the proper manner. Management must use the proper channels of communication to be taken seriously. Enforcement of their rules has to be consistent and fair. Subordinates' concerns should also be acknowledged by management to make themselves feel seen. A manager utilizing referent power has to be aware that subordinates are looking up to them. This means that fair treatment and defending of subordinates' interests, being sensitive to their needs and wants, goes a long way towards success. Selecting subordinates that are similar to themselves makes this task much easier. If you know what would work for yourself, it's easier to relate to someone else. Referent power positions are often found in role models and mentorships. Expert power can also be used properly when the person has credibility. Actual relevant knowledge and skills are respected in the workplace. Staying in the loop of what your subordinates are doing is also important. If something needs correcting, a manager that is in the loop can show expertise in the immediate moment by fixing this. Managers have to be careful to do this in a manner that doesn't harm the employee's self-esteem. Reward and coercive power both lead to compliance, but result in employees needing to be constantly supervised in order to be consistently effective. The goals are achieved, but management has to be more hands-on in order to do so. When not supervised, quality of work can fall dramatically. Legitimate power gets the job done as well. When your boss tells you to do something, you tend to comply immediately. This does lead to sloppy work, however. Employees rush to get things done, often make mistakes. They'll drop work that they were previously working on and can forget about it. Referent power can also be an effective tool for organizational success, but it is the most dangerous power for how much it can influence others. People will overwork themselves to please someone they revere. Expert power is termed the power of the future because it is the most effective. People observe and learn from their managers that they perceive to be experts. Legitimate, reward, and coercive power are the least effective forms of power, but they are also the most common. Logically, they do make sense and they lead to compliance, but the quality of work that they produce is less than the other forms of power. Information power is a new sixth power. It is the access to and control over important information in the workplace. Someone like an executive's assistant or the boss's lazy son know things that they really shouldn't, but it can be held over another person's head. This kind of power is often abused. Information can go from the top to the bottom or the bottom to the top. For example, a worker on the floor of a plant could notice a problem with the process that they are involved in, but they choose not to tell their boss because they don't like them. Managers can learn to use all 5 of the forms of power. They can all be effective if used in an ethical manner. The use of power must also be uniform and easy to understand. Subordinates will accept the decisions being made if they understand the why. This is especially true of punishments. If used fairly, it's much easier to accept and move past. Having power is also a major responsibility and should not be taken lightly. Being in a position to influence others makes it imperative that good ethics are used and observed.
Okay, now we will be talking about a leader who has made a strong impact in the world of business, and that is Indra Nooyi. For 5 years in a row, Chairman and CEO of Pepsi Cola has held the top spot on Fortune's 50 Most Powerful Women's list. Her company has reached revenues that have topped over $60 billion annually. She aims to take good care of PepsiCo's massive workforce, achieve a net zero impact on the environment, and reduce obesity and encourage a healthy lifestyle among all people. She wants to do this by providing products that are not just tasty snacks, but also nutritious and good for you. The strategy Nooyi uses to guide PepsiCo's performance with purpose has three parts. First is human sustainability, providing products that are not just tasty snacks, but also nutritious and good for you. Second is environmental sustainability, being a good stewardess here on Earth. And third is talent sustainability, creating a culture at work where employees can be themselves and comfortable with what they are doing.
Hello guys, so this is Robert Guzman here. I'm going to be talking to you guys about influence tactics. And really we use influence every day, but what influence is the process of affecting the thoughts, behavior, or feelings of another person. And like I said, we use those tactics every day, whether you may know what type of tactics you're using or not. But just like today, or just earlier this week, I asked my boss, I influenced him, I tried to get him to let me leave early. I wanted to go home, work on this project, and it worked. But just to show you that we do use influence tactics every day, and that's one of the examples. One example could be a person, the other person could be the boss, which is upwards influence, meaning that let's say like I said, I asked my boss to leave early today, but then I also kind of went over his head and went to his boss and said, hey, can I leave early? And then I go back to my direct boss and I say, oh, your boss said I can leave early. So that's one way I influenced my boss. Another way could be downward influence, which is me, like my employee. If I had tried to maybe get them to stay later, I'm going to influence them and say, oh, hey, can you stay a little bit later? And I'm going to use one of these tactics that we're going to go over. Or a coworker, which would be lateral influence, meaning that we're on the same level. I may be asking them to, hey, cover my shift this day, or hey, can you help me out with this project? I could use some help. So those are some examples, real life examples of how you use influence in the day to day. There are going to be 8 basic types of influence tactics. Research has shown that the 4 tactics that are used most frequently are consultation, rational persuasion, inspirational appeals, and ingratiation. We also have upward appeals, and correlation tactics that are used moderately, and the ones that are used least often is going to be exchange tactic, while pressure is going to be used, but is the least effective of these tactics. So here we are with the table of the different types of influence tactics. Pressure, like I stated earlier, is the least effective, but I probably will say and admit that it is probably the one of the most used. I mean, I've seen it been used in real life. That's why I say it's the use of intimidation to convince you to comply with the request. And that's your boss saying if you're fired if you don't comply. You know, they're going to apply that pressure of you losing your job to get you to do something that they want you to do. Right? Upward appeals persuade you that the request was approved by higher management. Like I said earlier, I went up over my boss's head, or I could be talking to somebody on the same level, trying to influence them and say, hey, our boss said that this is what we're going to do. Exchange is the person makes an explicit or implicit promise that will make you receive rewards if you comply. One of those ways or examples is going to be, you owe me a favor. You know, you owe me a favor, so please help me out with this. You know, that's how you're going to influence them, because they owe you a favor. Coalition is a person seeks aid of others to persuade you to do something, and I kind of see this as it could be peer pressure. You know, not so much direct pressure like one of the tactics, but peer pressure is kind of, you know, gathering everyone up in the same group and saying, hey, we all agree with going with the color green. Hey, you should also reconsider and go with the color green, and that's a way to influence somebody. So here we have ingratiation is another tactic, and that's when the person gets you in a good mood before asking you for a favor. And that's kind of like buttering you up, you know, motivating you, or talking to your ego, feeding your ego a little bit, and basically say only you can do this job. That's one example, and that's probably a good example. I mean, I know I've used that before. Hey, you're really good at this. I could use your help, and that's one influence tactic. Another one is rational persuasion, and that's when people use logistics, statistics, facts to persuade you and get you to rethink or reconsider your ideas and your beliefs. Inspirational, it's as it sounds, you know, it's when a person inspires you and it makes an emotional request, or it makes an emotional connection to what they're trying to ask you to do. Here the example is, achieving the task will be difficult, but you can do it. You know, it kind of inspires them, motivates them, and you can really use that on somebody if you know them, that they're a sucker for motivation. You know, you're gonna go up to them and say, hey, I need the best guy out here today, and I know you're the one to do it, and it's gonna be hard. I've tried so hard, you know, just adding a little of that emotional appeal to it and getting him to help you out, or he, she, to help you out with that task. And the last one is going to be consultation. The person seeks your participation before making rash decisions. And the example here is, what are your thoughts on the new regulations implemented. And that's really just like it sounds. They come to you seeking advice in order to influence you or another person. Here on this slide, we're going to talk about political behavior in organizations. Really, I see political behavior as this division of between in the organization. It creates this culture that is some organizations believe in it, some find them unacceptable. And really, what I mean by that is that political behaviors can be used to influence others for personal gain, and that personal gain may not align with the organization's goals. And like I said, it creates a division, and maybe creates a right side, and maybe you're trying to get a promotion, and you're gonna believe or say you believe, you may not even believe it, but you're gonna advocate for that right side because it's gonna get you that promotion, and that promotion is gonna be personal gain. It's not gonna be what you believe in for the organization or which way the organization should go, but you're gonna follow it and you're gonna believe it because it's gonna get you that promotion, right? That can also be negative in an organization because it creates this unfairness and favoritism even for both sides will show favoritism, and it won't be fair. Like, let's say I'm trying to get a promotion also, but I believe in the left side, and I won't be able to get that promotion because the person handing out the promotions is a right-wing advocate and a right-wing follower, and you are also a right-wing advocate, so they're going to pick you over me, of course, because I'm a left wing, and it just creates this environment, this culture that eventually spirals out of control, and it just creates an unsatisfied workplace, an unsatisfactory workplace, and it's not fun for people to work there. But it also political behaviors can also be positive, because if our self-interests are aligned with the organizational goals of the company, then of course then we can all win if we all believe in the same thing and we're all trying to influence others to believe what we believe in, because we're all trying to go in the same direction. So here's a recap of what we learned today and throughout our presentation. There are different forms of power. For example, the reward, the coercive, the expert. Expert being maybe you have more knowledge, more experience. So people are going to come to you, giving you power and the ability to answer questions and ability to influence others. To use power effectively, one must also know that what influence is and what authority is. Like we discussed, influence is the ability to persuade someone or change someone's thoughts and ideas. The authority can mean that you have the right to maybe correct somebody, or you have the right to tell someone how to do something because that is your position, that's what your title entails. Power must be used ethically by meeting the three questions, the three criteria. Those questions are going to be, does the behavior produce a good outcome for both inside and outside organization? Does the behavior respect the rights of all parties? And does the behavior threat all parties equitably, treat all parties equitably and fairly? And really that just makes sure that you're not crossing any boundaries when you're using that power, whatever you may be needing to use, and the power you're trying to portray. Functional sources of power, we went over that. The different symbols of power, which is cantors and quotas. Cantors being the actions helping others that give you power, and quotas being symbols of status. You know, how big desk is going to be powerful. Influence tactics, like we went over, and political behavior and organization. So this is what we went over this slide, and I hope you can use this information for yourself in an for your organization, for the organization you work for, and hopefully you don't get caught in the wrong side or with the short end of the stick, and you can use this information to your benefit, and you can see when other people are trying to use this information for bad or not for a good cause. Here we have our resources. It's going to be the textbook, and also one of the tables that we found is also in the textbook. We cited it as well. Thank you guys so much for listening to our presentation today, for staying till the end. Please don't forget to fill out the interactive activity. Robbie is going to be posting that on the whiteboard space. And it's a set of questions, a set of statements that you're going to either rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. And it's going to, at the end, you're going to add it all up, and it's going to tell you how politically skilled you are. So please don't forget to fill that out, guys. Thank you so much. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Smash that like button. Sign on or turn on your notification bells, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.